All right, hello. I'm Matthew Coast, and today we're going to be talking about the three biggest mistakes that women make that prevent you from attracting Mr. Right. And um, so here's what happened. I went and talked to Helena, the wonderful and beautiful Helena Hart. Go ahead and say hi, Helena.
Hey, everybody. We're so excited to be here with you today.
And she was saying we were talking about kind of what kind of big mistakes a lot of people make, and so Helena put together a great list of big mistakes that a lot of women make that prevent them from attracting the right man into their life. And so if you're having problems really connecting, getting the man that you want to have in your life into a wonderful, amazing relationship where it's filled with love and support and partnership, then this is the live stream for you. Um, without further ado, I'm going to give it over to Helena because she's the one with all the great, valuable information today. You want to go ahead and take it away?
Yes, thank you for that amazing introduction. And I just want to start out by saying that, the reason why becoming aware of of these mistakes is so important is because I've just seen so many women unknowingly do these things. And they're just like doing these things without realizing it. They think that they're just being nice and sweet and understanding and keeping the relationship going. And they are really like they're accidentally pushing the man they want away, or they're preventing Mr. Right from showing up in their life and coming towards them. So, in order for a man to want to pursue you and commit to a real relationship with you, he has to feel some very specific things. He has to feel this like pull to come towards you, and he has to feel things like 5 times as many positive interactions for every one negative interaction or emotion or experience. So, if you avoid these mistakes that I'm going to be talking about today and implement some of the information and tools that I'm also going to be sharing, instead of a man pulling away from you, or instead of attracting the wrong kind of men, that which can just lead to frustration and burnout and hopelessness, the man that you want, whether he's in your life right now or if he's about to show up, will just feel this irresistible pull to come towards you. And it will really inspire his love and devotion and commitment if that's what you want for yourself. So, we're going to be talking about these three mistakes and what to do instead to really bring a man close and make him want, try to convince you to commit to him, not the other way around. And make sure to stay till the end too, because I'm also going to be giving you an opportunity to talk with me one on one about your personal, unique situation. So make sure to stick around so we can give you the information on how to do that, so we can talk with each other. So these are all mistakes that pretty much every woman I know has made. I've certainly made all three of them myself, and I see my clients, or at least women who come to me and they're feeling frustrated because the man they want is either pulling away, or he's just not committing to like a full-time serious relationship with her, or they've been dating for a really long time and they're just feeling frustrated because they just haven't met that right man for them yet. They might attract a lot of men, but the men that they actually want to be with, those high quality men, never seem to like stick around or take the relationship to the next level. I just have so many stories of that happening. I can think of just dozens of client stories off the top of my head. One of my clients, she actually wrote a little bit about her story in our last live stream, was making one of these mistakes in particular, and was totally heartbroken and devastated, and made this one shift, and she was actually able to attract the love of her life. It was actually the very first date that she went on after the two of us worked together, is the man that she ended up with, and they just bought a house together and are planning a wedding and having kids and all of that great stuff. I had another client who was making these mistakes, and she had this, she called him her rubber band man, because it was a man who was like really hot and cold. He'd come on really strong and then back off. And the relationship was just stagnant. Like he'd come close and he'd pull away. It's like this back and forth, hot and cold thing. And she was really frustrated because the connection and the intimacy weren't deepening, and it was just really stagnant. And she made this one shift, and she completely transformed her relationship. And he's just now, it's all on her terms now. He's wanting to make her happy and do what it takes to convince her to be with him. And they ended up having a great relationship. I have another client who was, with a man who she was worried that he was afraid of commitment, because he was like in his 50s and had never been married, and she'd been married before and had 2 kids. And she was, frustrated because the relationship was moving more slowly than she would like. So when she made this one shift, they're now getting married actually next month. So it was like a really dramatic turnaround there as well. I just have so many stories like that. And I
Yeah,
just,
hey, Helena, you mind
oh
if I
yeah,
throw something in there real quick?
absolutely, yeah.
I a lot of people know from kind of our conversations and stuff that at one point in time I was a men's dating coach, and back when I was a men's dating coach, one of the things that we used to talk to a lot of guys about is that a lot of times. For a man who wants to meet a great woman, there's usually this big journey that he has to go on, where he has to go and kind of develop social skills if he doesn't have them already. He's got to like really get it together from like just like a finance and a personal empowerment type of standpoint. He might need to kind of step into some of his masculinity that primally he has, but he hasn't really nurtured it, or he hasn't felt like it's okay to kind of build up. There's a lot of things that a lot of times guys need to go through in order to attract a woman. And sometimes it's not that. Sometimes it's just getting out of his own way. Because a lot of times what would happen was these guys would meet this woman, and I used to go out with these guys, and we would go into bars or different types of situations. We'd go to coffee shops, and they'd go and meet women, and I would sit there and watch them, and then they'd come back and I'd talk about what happened, and we'd have these discussions about it. And a lot of times what would happen is they would meet these women, and the women were really attracted to the guy, right? And then the guy would start saying crazy things and goofy things because he thought he had to kind of entertain her and do all these magical things around her, and that would end up turning the woman off, and making her go, I don't, it's like he's like throwing out all these red flags accidentally, and it's kind of some of that kind of translates over to the women's side as well. So a lot of times women will just get in their own way. You'll hear things a lot of times where women say, "Oh yeah, I things go great at the beginning, but after kind of this 2 month period of time, or after a few weeks or whatever, the guy ends up losing interest and disappearing and ghosting and all these other things. And a lot of times it's the woman." Her insecurities might come up. A lot of different things kind of come up, and sometimes it's just about getting out of your own way. It's about not trying to control it and force it to happen, which tends to actually make things not happen. Right? So if you're sitting there trying to, make things happen all the time, you're like, how do I make him love me? How do I make him commit? How do I make him, do all these different things? A lot of times that is actually the problem, like the problem. And so I don't want to steal Helena's thunder here. And I just want to say hi to everybody that's in our chat right now. So Alma, hey, Char, Lajoraba, Thelma, everybody, hi. If you're on our chat, we've got 137 people here right now.
Oh
Make
my
sure you say
gosh.
hi. So
Hey, everybody. Oh my gosh, we're so excited to have you here. And yeah, I love everything you said. And I just really believe there's a better way to get into relationships. Like, as a lot of you know, there are more women now who are single than ever before in recorded history, and who are really struggling to get into fulfilling, long lasting relationships. And men as well, just like men are. Men and women, we talk about this a lot. We've found that they're really kind of naturally attracted to each other on this, like, primal or biological level. But then what happens is we're kind of like socialized to do these things that end up pushing each other away, just like Matt was talking about with his example. Men do this too. And I've really found that as women, we've kind of been taught all the wrong information about what's truly attractive to a man and what really inspires him to fall in love and just see you as that one woman that he just can, never wants to live without. So if you don't become aware of these patterns and start to turn them around, things might not happen so naturally for you, as I'm sure you've experienced, right? Like Matt was saying, maybe things go well for a little while. Maybe you don't have a problem attracting men, but after the first few months, or maybe after the first year or so, problems come up, or you might see the man like not putting in as much effort as he was at the beginning of a relationship. I know I hear from women all the time in that situation as well. So, if you don't do something different and become aware of some of these patterns so you can, fix it and really turn things around, likely nothing's going to change. You'll just kind of keep getting the same results you've always gotten. So just for a moment, I want you to imagine what it would feel like to have a man just see you as that one woman that he never wants to live without. Imagine having a man finding you so attractive and just, feel this irresistible pull to come towards you. And you just know for sure that, he's not going anywhere. You know exactly where you stand with him. You are never worried that you're not pretty enough or not good enough. There's no second guessing yourself or, beating yourself up over what you might have done wrong. And imagine a man in your life just feeling this kind of, irresistible drive to love you in the same way that you love him. How would that change your experience in your love life, no matter where you are in dating and relationships? And did you have anything you wanted to add there,
Nope,
Matt?
didn't have anything.
Okay.
That was fantastic. So,
Okay. Okay, well, let's just jump right into the mistakes then. I'm going to be looking at my notes a little bit here to make sure that that I don't miss anything, because this is such important information. So, mistake number one is staying stuck on a man who isn't, giving you the relationship you want, or who's not willing or able to commit to the kind of relationship that you're looking for. And this was certainly something that I used to do over and over again, and a lot of women come to me who are kind of stuck on this one man who's just either not doing the job in the relationship or not moving things along and taking things to the next level. And it's really painful. There's a couple things it does. It really prevents that woman from opening herself up to men who are available and who are, those good, masculine, high quality guys that would just be thrilled for a chance to like pursue her and be in a relationship with her. And it also keeps that one particular man at a distance. If, this is someone you're in a relationship with, if he gets the sense that he can kind of just treat you however he wants, and you're going to tolerate bad behavior, and he can take as long as he wants to make up his mind about like what he wants to do with you, there's no reason for him to come towards you and make a decision. There's nothing to compel him to come close, right? So what women do who end up in this soulmate level relationship are the women who quickly move on from any man who's not stepping up, who isn't the right man for some reason. And I know it can be really difficult to do this, but it's really, really important. When you do this, your chances of meeting the right man for you will dramatically increase when you're not staying stuck on someone who's not doing the job, or the one particular man that you have in mind will just start to see you in a whole new way if he starts to worry that he's going to lose you, or he can't, if he's just kind of like taking forever to make up his mind, or to move the relationship forward. If he gets the sense that you're not going to wait around for him and that you're not going to like tolerate bad treatment, if he's the right man for you, he will step up right away and come back towards you, and basically do what he's supposed to be doing in the relationship. And just kind of like the harsh reality is that not every man is going to be able to give you what you want. As much as you love him and as much as you've invested and put a lot of effort out in the relationship, you just can't push and shove your way into a man's heart, no matter how hard you try. It's not how much you've put into the relationship that determines a man's desire to want to be with you and fall in love. It's the amount of effort that he puts in that really determines those things. So that's the first mistake: staying stuck on a man who isn't fully committing to you, or who isn't doing the job in the relationship. Matt, do you have anything you want to add there?
Sure. Yeah. So, a big thing, things have changed, right? Things have changed in the dating world. Things have changed for men and women. And there's kind of a new, you have to, it used to be that, you could kind of assume that everything was moving down this aisle, right? A lot of people call it the relationship escalator, right? They're like, going through this escalator of things where at the top of it they get married and have kids and there's a happily ever after type of thing, and you just can't assume that anymore. Right? You can't assume that if a guy's hanging out with you or talking to you or he wants to sleep with you or that he's been sleeping with you, or that you've been seeing each other, or that you're spending a lot of time with each other, or that you're even emotionally connected, that he necessarily wants something more with you. You can't assume that anymore. And so as a woman, you have to do something different than what women used to do, and if you want this relationship. And one of the things that you have to think about is how important is this man as far as this whole kind of thing is concerned, right? Because a lot of women end up, they find a guy and they're like, oh, but I really like this guy, and they just cling on to him, even if he's got all these things that are huge red flags that are telling her that he's not the right man for her. And so there's a lot of different ways to kind of, shift this. And what you want to start doing is start becoming somebody that he wants to make sure that he doesn't lose, right? He needs to feel urgency to move things forward, and he needs to feel like you're a big catch, like you're an incredibly valuable woman, like you're the type of woman that he's never met before and that he doesn't want to let go of. So that's all I wanted to
I
say.
love that. Yeah, absolutely. That is great. And do you mind if I just jump into mistake number two, or
Yes,
is
please.
that okay? Okay, so mistake number two is accidentally chasing a man. And this can be really easy to fall into, especially if you have a sense of urgency about the situation. Urgency on the woman's part always kills a man's attraction and feelings of connection towards her. But like Matt was saying, it's important for the man to feel a little urgency about like taking you off the market, so to speak, so he doesn't lose you to another man or to something else. So accidentally chasing a man looks like stepping into your masculine energy when it comes to the way the two of you interact. It could look like always being the one to initiate contact with him constantly, where he's not really doing any initiating. It could look like moving the relationship along all on your own, like you're always the one to ask him out and make plans with him, and drive to him and pay for everything when the two of you are together. Even just thinking about a man and obsessing about him constantly is a form of chasing a man, in my opinion. Just energetically, a lot of women think that they're not doing this, but they actually are, because they're just constantly obsessing about and strategizing and thinking about a man, even when he's not really putting a whole lot of effort in. So what this costs you when you start accidentally chasing a man is you feel like you're putting in all this effort, and therefore you're investing yourself in the relationship more and more and more. And a man is, that's where women say, like, I've done everything for him, I've put so much effort in and invested myself in him, and he's just taking me for granted. Or, because those things are not what inspires a man to really fall in love and come close to you and lock you down for a real committed relationship. It's something completely different. So that's one cost of accidentally chasing a man. Another one is a man might kind of like it if you do everything for him, and he's probably happy just to lean back and let you run the show. But so it can keep a man like that hanging around you for years or even decades. And like I've just mentioned, it's not what inspires him to truly commit to you and fall in love and give you the relationship you want. So it's we tend to think that every time we do something like that, it's getting us one step closer to that commitment or to that lifelong love that we've always been looking for. But it's just not, that's not what makes a man fall in love and inspires those feelings in him. So what you want to do instead is lean back into your feminine energy and allow a man to step up and do some of the pursuing, and allow him to start chasing you. Because like I mentioned before, it's the amount of effort and investment that a man puts into the potential relationship that determines his desire. Men fall in love when they feel like they've invested in you and put some of that effort in themselves. So when you do this the right way, a man will feel this urge to kind of like escalate his efforts and move things forward, all on his own, without any like prompting or pressure or strategizing or games on your end. It's really, really powerful. Or, if he's not the right man for you, when you stop putting in all that effort and chasing him, he will, back off and fade away, and a better man for you will step in. But you don't really know what a man's going to do unless you give him the opportunity to really step up. And the way to do that is to stop chasing him, even on these very subtle levels. And the truth is that the a man will be happy to take what you have to give. He'll be happy to like sleep with you and let you do everything for him. But that's not what ultimately inspires his desire to commit to you, and it's not what makes him fall in love. It just isn't. What makes a man fall in love doesn't really involve a lot of effort on the woman's part in the traditional sense of like chasing and doing all these things to sew the relationship together. It's something completely different. It's about being, and it's more of a feminine energy like mechanism that's going on. It's not this masculine energy thing where the more you do, the more a man falls in love. It's actually just the opposite. So, did you want to add anything to
Yeah,
number two?
absolutely. Because there's a little bit of confusion, and there was some confusion in our community the other day about this, and so I just want to clear it up a little bit. And it's this idea that if you're not chasing him, you have to like totally do nothing altogether, and you can't contact him, and you
Mm,
can't tell him anything, and you can't talk to him, and when he does talk to you, you don't really talk back, and there's kind of these extremes, right? And we had this in the men's dating space as well, right? Like um, we would talk about like not being a nice guy, right, in the men's side, and like guys would be like, oh well, I don't want to be an asshole, right? And so like what they would do is they'd go from this nice guy side and they'd jump over and like be a total a-hole to these women. And you're like, whoa, like I mean, like when I say don't be a nice guy, and be more assertive and be, stronger and be more confident, that doesn't mean you need to start like insulting women and attacking them and all that kind of stuff, because that's not attractive either, and so there's kind of a middle ground in everything, right? There's a middle ground, there's something, and usually what happens is people start on one side and they kind of bounce back and forth. And for a lot of women, what this looks like is they go from this space of doing everything, right? they're doing everything. They're contacting all the time. They're, like sending, mass text messages. They're planning the guy's life. They're, they're doing everything, right? And then they jump over to this other side where they don't do anything at all, right? And then they're a little bit confused. And I know, I'm not sure exactly. I'm guessing that there's a little bit of a difference between the way that Helena and I think about this. But for me, it's not, and I'm guessing that we probably have the same kind of uh, like underlying fundamental thought strategy on this, but at the same time there's kind of like you can invite a guy to do things, right? Like you can talk to him and you can create kind of this space for him to do stuff, which doesn't mean that you do nothing, right? But it also doesn't mean that you do everything. And so there's a middle ground where you're connecting with him, you're kind of getting him to chase more, right? Getting him to invest more in you, getting him to do all these things by this combination of things where you're kind of not only leaning back, which we talk about a lot, but also kind of inviting. And creating a space and opening it up and allowing him to come in there, and because it's that investment that makes him want to commit. It's his feeling like you're this amazing woman that he spent a lot of time with that makes him want to stay there, right? If he spends a lot of time and money and energy and does all these things for you, he thinks in his mind like, wow, I've spent, I like he looks back on it. It's one of those psychological principles where you do something and then you look back and start justifying it, and you're like, oh yeah, I am interested. I am interested in something real here, and guys will find themselves doing that where they're like, oh, I did do all these things and I am interested. Yeah, I must be really interested in this. And they'll, even talk themselves into it. Like, no, you're right. I do want that. And, blah, 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 blah. So I don't want to ramble on
Yeah.
here.
I'm so glad you brought that up. Yeah, it's a really common misconception. I've talked about this in some of the videos on our channel. Feminine energy is not just about doing nothing. It's just not. It's uh, although yes, I'd rather have a woman do nothing for a little bit than to do all these things that look like chasing a man, because it gives a man a moment to breathe. It's like a pressure valve gets released. So doing nothing is better than doing all these things that push him away. But there's so much to feminine energy that involves doing something. It might not look like you're doing anything on the outside, but there's a lot that goes into it, because there are just very specific things that inspire a man's love and devotion and commitment. And that actually brings us right to mistake number 3. Do you mind if I just jump into that?
Yeah, jump into it.
Okay. So mistake number 3 is not connecting with a man in a way that truly makes him fall in love and want to commit to a lifelong relationship with you. So a lot of times, people talk about like a mind body connection, like, oh, like you want to have this physical connection and mental connection. And those things are great. Like those are fantastic. And you likely, will have those things with your life partner. Once you meet that guy, or maybe you're already with him, you will have a mental and physical connection with him, likely. But that is not what makes him fall in love. What makes a man fall in love is a really deep heart-to-heart connection. So if you don't learn how to connect with a man's heart in the right way, what happens is, you'll be like trying to create this connection through these other ways that don't work. Like, you might try and create the connection physically, like through sex, so you just, I've had friends or people in my life that would think, well, if, the sex is good enough, that he'll just keep coming back for more and more. And and that might be true for a little while, but that's not what makes him fall in love and want to be in like a relationship, committed relationship with you. It's something completely different. The truth is that, that a man can have a great sexual relationship with like a female buddy, right? And for forever, for years and years and years. So the cost of not, connecting with a man's heart and trying to go about things in one of these ways that don't work is that you will likely become very attached to the man if you're sleeping with him. The oxytocin kicks in and all of those like really good feeling neurotransmitters, and we as women can get very attached and bonded to a man physiologically. And that, and in combination with the mental connection, then we can feel like we're connecting on all these levels. And meanwhile, the man's not falling in love. He might like you, and he might want to keep you around for the mental like stimulation he gets from you, or if the sex is really good, I'm sure he'd want to keep you around for that. But the woman thinks all of these things are moving them towards this deeper commitment and this soulmate level love, where a man can stay at that level for a long time. I know couples who have been in this like kind of casual relationships for 20 years, and the woman thinks that they're still holding out hope, thinking the man's gonna propose next year. Every year it's like the same. It's just not going to happen. So what you want to do instead is create this deep heart to heart connection. And this is one of the things that you can do that it's a feminine energy thing, but it's something you actually do. It's about going deep within yourself and connecting to yourself first. I always say the way to connect to a man's heart is always through your own heart first. So if you're cut off from your own feelings, if you're cut off from your own heart and you're up in your head trying to create some connection with a man, it just won't work. You have to start with yourself. You have to go inside yourself and connect with that, and then learn how to express some of these things to a man in a way that really, really brings him closer rather than pushes him away. So when you do this correctly, you'll just kind of see a man falling in love with you right before your eyes. I mean, you could just feel it. It's very powerful. And if you've ever tried that, that it's true. It'll kind of set you apart from every other woman out there who's kind of stuck in her masculine energy or isn't connected to herself and her own feelings. Because like I mentioned, the truth is that, a man would be, he might keep coming around forever if you are connecting with him physically or mentally or in some other way that doesn't really truly make him fall in love, but it's not getting you any closer to that lifelong committed relationship that I know you're looking for. So this is the third mistake: not connecting to a man in a way that makes him fall in love and inspires this desire for him to come closer and commit to you. Did you have anything you wanted to add there, Matt?
I see that a lot happening in. I mean, we get women all the time that are like, "Oh, okay, well, this has happened. Like we've been seeing each other for 5 years." I had a woman one time told me she was seeing a guy for 15 years, and he still was like, "No, we're not in a relationship. No, we're not dating each
Mm-hmm.
other." And I mean, it's just a painful, painful thing. It's like, don't waste your life with a guy that's not going to move things forward, not going to help you, who's not going to create the relationship you want with you. And you need to get on the same page with a guy, and you need to communicate and talk to him and find these things out. It's not an assumption. It used to be an assumption. And I get women sometimes that'll say things like, "Oh, well, men should just assume that if we're going to sleep together that we're in a relationship." And it's like a lot of women out there think that, I mean, a lot of people out there think, and I've heard this from plenty of women clients as well, but a lot of people out there think that if you're talking to each other you're in a relationship, or if you're if you go on a date with each other you're in a relationship. When I was doing online dating, I had a woman that contacted me, and she said, she was like, "Hey," she sent me something, and I sent her back like, "Hey, like, I don't know, I can't remember what I said, but I didn't kind of continue on the conversation." And a couple days later, she's like, "Hey, is it okay that I see other people now? I'm gonna shut this down, and I only talk to one person at a time." And I'm just like, "What?" Like, what are you talking about? But yeah, don't. I don't know. I think you've kind of said it over and over and over again. So I'm not gonna repeat it. You can go ahead.
Okay, great. So that's that. Those are the three mistakes that prevent you from attracting the man you want, whether you are single and looking to attract your soulmate, or if you have a man in your life, but he's just not taking things to the next level, or anything like that. So I mentioned at the beginning of this that I was going to give you an opportunity to talk with me one on one about your unique situation, because every situation is different. It's really important to get like the details of your situation and uncover some of your own patterns and blocks to love if you really want to turn things around. And right now, I have a couple openings for new clients. And here's who I can work with and who I can help. I can help women who are single, either if they're recently single or if they've been single for a really long time and they're frustrated and struggling to meet that right man. If you have a pattern of like attracting the wrong men for you, or attracting the same type of man over and over where it doesn't work out, I can definitely help you with that situation. Women who are in relationships and the connection has fizzled a little bit, or the man isn't doing all of the things that he did at the beginning of the relationship when they first got together. I can help women, whose man has like drifted off and faded away, and they're looking to recapture that connection, because it is possible. If the connection was there at the beginning and he was attracted to you and moving things forward, it is possible to recapture it and reconnect it, depending on the situation. But I've just seen that happen over and over and over again. Who I can't work with are women who are in abusive relationships and they want to stay with the man and try and work things out when they're in a situation where they're being abused. Women who want to get their ex back and the guy has clearly stated that there's no way it's going to happen, and they're trying to kind of like make the impossible happen. Typically these tools don't work in situations like that. So I have a new coaching program called the Soulmate Attraction System. And I'm going to be working with a small group of women. And we're just going to, dive deep into what's going on with your unique situation. And there's a lot of personal coaching that happens in this program. You get 4 private one-on-one sessions with me, 1-hour sessions over the phone, and also Q&A calls once a week with the group. And we also have a Facebook group, and you also get email access to me. I get so many questions every day. It's like unbelievable, and I can't obviously only going to be responding to. I'm going to be basically focusing all of my coaching efforts on this small group of women, so I can really help them get those quick results that they're looking for. So this is a high-end program because I'm going to be giving you a lot of personal attention, so you can get those long-lasting results. And if you want to speak to me about your personal situation and see if the two of us might be a good fit to work together, I believe there's a button in the description of this.
Yeah,
Is that right?
there's a link in the description, and there might also be a card, like a big eye, up on the top right hand side of this video. And if you click on those, you'll go to a page where there's a little bit of information and then kind of an application to talk with Helena if that's something that you're interested in.
Yeah, so go ahead and click the link and fill out just a short application, couple questions so I can get to know your situation a little bit. And if I think that we'd be a good fit to work together in this program, I'll contact you and we can do a short phone call to kind of get to know each other a little bit and see if I can help you really turn things around for yourself in your love life. And if we end up working together, I can guarantee that I'm going to help you uncover the barriers and blocks that are preventing you from attracting the man you want, or the kind of man you want, and creating an extraordinary relationship with him. Even if you've been feeling frustrated and hopeless, like maybe like you're about to give up. I've worked with so many women who are at that place and really had them turn things around for themselves. So did you want to add anything else? Is the link's available in the description, you
Yeah, the
said?
link's in the description. If you're interested, just go down and click on the link, and Helena will and fill out the application, hit submit, and Helena will contact you about getting on the phone and talking together about your situation and what's going on with you and seeing if you guys are a good fit for each other. And yeah, so did you want to go into Q&A next?
Yeah, I was just going to ask you that. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, we're gonna do some question and answer, and we're just gonna go through and talk to people about different things. Um, so everybody that's here, hello, hello, say hello. Ask your questions if you have a question. TT says, does she have a book? You have like ebooks, right?
Yeah, I have I think like 10. I have a lot of books. Yeah. And there's also the feminine enchantment system as well that we have.
Yeah.
Um,
So there's a lot of
mhm.
different things that she has. So Linda says, how do we date celebrities online, and how do we know if it really is a real celebrity person? So that's it's actually a really good question. You mind if I uh, say something about this first,
Yeah,
Helena?
go for it.
So there's kind of this weird thing, and I didn't even know that it was. It's on both the men and women's side, and I didn't know it was on the men's side until about a year ago. But so there's these people that are online that are constantly scamming men and women out of like money, out of all kinds of different things. There's people catfishing people. There's people creating kind of these like um, online relationships that are kind of weird. There's a big thing that has happened a lot, and I've gotten a lot of women that have contacted me about this. Where there's these guys, and a lot of times they'll be in like Africa. They say that they're in Africa or that they're in Iraq or something with the U.S. military, and that they are in love with this woman, and oh, I'm stuck out here in Iraq and I need some money to fly back to America, and then these women like give these guys money. Like it just blows my mind when I hear about this stuff. Listen, if at any point in time a guy tells you that he needs money and you haven't met him, you haven't been seeing him for years at that point, that you should not give him any money, right? You should not be giving men money. You should not be sending them money. You should definitely not be wiring them money or any of that kind of stuff. If you can't meet a guy, I wouldn't even trust that he's a real person. If you're talking to a guy online and he says that he's a celebrity of some sort, like, I mean, it's possible. There's definitely a lot of internet celebrities these days. Some people consider us to be internet celebrities at this point, which I think is kind of funny. But at the same time, it's like, it could be. It could be. You might want to do some research in it. You might want to find out more about it. You definitely want to meet the person, right? If you can't meet this person and they're saying these things and they're like, oh, they're trying to avoid meeting you. Like, there's a lot of women that I'll talk to, and sometimes they're like, there's actually a discussion on in our community the other day where women were like, how long do you wait to meet a guy? Right? And some women were like, oh, as long as possible, and other women are like, immediately, and I think there's kind of a bunch of different things there. Obviously you want to kind of screen out guys, and at the same time you don't want to waste tons and tons of time chatting online, because it's hard to really get a read on somebody when you're just talking to them online. But if you're talking to them in person, it's easier to kind of find things that are going on, find red flags, find, the truth, find out what the truth is. And so I think that, how do you know if he's a celebrity? Well, you do some research. You don't trust what anybody tells you on the internet without some kind of evidence, some kind of real evidence. You even if you meet people, there's women that have kind of fallen into these traps of they'll meet a guy and the guy will say all this crazy stuff with no evidence to back it up, and then they end up in some kind of weird situation, and that's the absolute last thing that you want to do. You want to find people, you want to learn about them, you want to meet them in person, and you want to make sure that they're real people. So Did you want to
Yeah.
say anything
So,
about
no,
that,
you
Haley?
said it all. Just don't, yeah, don't invest yourself at all in any way until you know for sure that until you've met them in person or, I mean, or video chat if they're somewhere, there's no reason why people can't video chat these days. Every camera, I mean, every phone has a camera. There's internet everywhere, accessible. So I would just do that right away before investing any emotions or time or any energy at all into something like that.
Okay, so the next question that we have is from Pia, and she asks, any tips for someone who attracts guys and makes them like her, and then she falls for them and start trying to control the situation, doing all the red flags, nagging, asking what we are, etc. Do you have any secret tips, Helena, for this kind of a
Yeah, well,
situation?
like I mentioned in mistake number two, the first step is, well, first step is awareness. You already have that, which is awesome. You totally know what you're doing. And I also know that having the knowledge in and of itself is one thing, and actually being able to apply these things and stop yourself from doing all that stuff when you're really feeling strongly attracted to a man, or where you've fallen in love with him, or you have strong feelings. Having the knowledge of what you're not supposed to do or what you're supposed to do is one thing. Actually implementing it in a situation where your emotions are involved, where it's like a high stakes situation, is something completely different. Like everybody knows that smoking is bad for you, and yet there's millions of people who can't quit. It's, similar like that. A lot of people know what they need to do to lose weight, but they're just not able to do it. So the first step would be awareness. Second step would be stop doing all of those things. And if you're having a hard time doing that, personal coaching is really beneficial, because we can take a look at the like subconscious drives that are causing you to sort of act out and sabotage things with men, even though intellectually you're not supposed to do that, but it continues to happen, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I also think that there's kind of a lot of times there's there it depends on your situation, but it might be that you have habits, right? Some women that just have these habits and they're used to being masculine, right? So they're masculine in their jobs and they're masculine in their day-to-day lives, and so when they get into a relationship, they start acting masculine. They start doing everything. They start putting in all these effort, and then the guy's not doing what she wants him to do, and so then it's like, why aren't you doing it, and then it turns into nagging, and then next thing you know it blows up and destroys. And sometimes it's habits, right? Sometimes it's as simple as habits, which is in some regards one of the more simplistic things, even though habits are incredibly difficult for a lot of people to change. And sometimes it's deeper than that, right? Sometimes it's like this thing that's inside of you that's coming out, right? It's like these emotional things. It might be fears, right? You're afraid that you're going to lose something. You're afraid that you're not worthy or good enough, and so you lash out at a guy because you're trying to control the situation because of those fears. And so,
Mm.
if you work on those fears, if you work on those internal things, and kind of create like an alignment into what it is that you want in a relationship with a guy, it's a lot easier to um, it's a lot easier to come from that space and do things that are attractive than coming from a space of fear and a space of feeling like you're not good enough, or a space of feeling like you're not whole, and trying to fix these behaviors when you don't have all the internal stuff kind of set up and aligned yet.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so true. If you're not embracing, there's certain parts of yourself that you're not embracing and accepting, and they don't feel like understood or listened to, they're going to act out and sabotage you, usually at the worst possible moment. So I have so many powerful tools on how to turn that around. If anyone's ever had a coaching session with me where I've taken you through one of these, exercises, you know how life changing it is, really, because these little parts of yourself that are sabotaging things with these men are just likely little pieces of yourself that are like deeply in love with you, and they want you to get what you want, and they want to keep you safe. They're just not going about it in the best ways. So that's something that I would definitely love working with you on if you decide you want to go
Yeah,
forward.
and so if you're interested, like we were talking about before, there's a link in the description if you want to talk to Helena personally and find out if you guys are a good match. So let's go on to some more questions here. We have Karen who says, if a guy propositions a woman for sex or gropes her on a first date, should she give him another chance? Um, I think it kind of depends on what you mean when you say that. When you say the word grope, what I'm thinking of is um, an undesired kind of physical touch type of thing, right? And uh, with and again, it's like, okay, well, what exactly are we talking about here? Like, did you like stop him and have boundaries and do something about it, or were you just letting him kind of touch you and he didn't really know that there was a boundary that he was crossing? Like, I'm not exactly sure what was going on there, so it kind of depends on what the situation was. If he thought that you liked it and you didn't, but you weren't saying anything about it, that could be just a something that you need to make sure that you're setting up with your boundaries. Because guys kind of test boundaries, right? They test how far they can go because they don't know, and in the world that we live in today, it's kind of this weird hookup culture thing where, going on a date, it's kind of expected that there's, if you guys do have a good connection, that you're going to be able to move things forward into a sexual relationship with no kind of strings attached to it. And so you need to set up boundaries immediately when you're dating anybody, as to what's going on and how you feel and what's going on with you. So I think it really depends on a lot of different things that you're talking about. And what do you have to say about this, Helena?
Yeah, I totally agree. It just depends. If it's an obvious thing where it's just, trust your intuition, like, oh, that felt terrible, or I expressed my boundary and he pushed it beyond my comfort level, then obviously that's a major red flag. It could be anything. If he's like, hey, we're having a great time, do you want to go back to my place and watch a movie and get a bottle of wine and hang out? There are ways to say, there are ways to state your boundaries that not only kind of draw a line and make him feel more attractive to you, and really increase your perceived value in his eyes, while at the same time, having him like place you in this category of like, okay, this is a high value woman. This is not someone, this is not just a casual fling situation. There are ways to set up boundaries right away like that.
Yeah, and so we'd need to know a little bit more about your situation.
Mm.
If anybody else has any questions, please put the questions into the chat box. So what else do we have here? So that happened to me, and I blocked them and did not send them any money. Yeah, I hope so, Carolyn. Oh man, it's amazing that this even happens to me. Sometimes it kind of blows my mind that anybody lets that happen to them, but it does. It does. It's so weird. So Sue says hi all. So thanks for saying hi. Hi Sue. Hope you're doing well today. And so Pia says thank you for the reply. It was spot on. I know what to do because I hate guys who do this to me, but I still do it to them. I will absolutely check out your coaching. Awesome. Penny says I met a guy online that lives in another city. He is coming to meet me next weekend for breakfast. How do I tell him I don't want to spend the whole day with him? Do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's a great question. Did you what's the expectation? Again, this is helpful to get the details here. Did he say something that led you to believe that he expects to spend the whole day with him? If that's the case, let us know. If not, you could just, while you're on the date with him, you could set that frame beforehand and say, I'm so looking forward to meeting up with you next week, and just to let you know, I only have a couple hours because I have to do something else. Or if you're actually on the date with him and you don't want to keep spending time with him, you could just letting him know that you had a great time, and you're feeling a little restless, there's some errands you have to run. There's just different ways to do it. But a man should he should know, he shouldn't expect that he, you know, is going to spend the entire day with you. So don't be afraid to say some of those things.
Well, and I know he said that he's coming into town, and I don't know if that means that he said like, I mean he like I don't know how you met this guy like online with him kind of coming into your town. Maybe it was a Tinder thing or something where you put that he's in your location or whatever. Um, but what you can do here, and what I've kind of recommended to a lot of different people, is kind of have arbitrary things that you're doing afterwards, right? So create a timeline that you want to have, and so you say, okay, I'm gonna be available for 45 minutes, right? Or I'm gonna be available for an hour and a half, or however long it is that you want to spend with this guy, and then have something that you're doing afterwards, right?
Mm.
And and don't make it something where it's totally scheduled, right? Like it's not something where it's like a hair appointment or something where you have to go to it, or you like end up they end up charging you or something like that, right? Instead, although you could do that, but what you I think you should do instead is have some kind of thing that you're going to go and do. It could be anything. It could be going home and hanging out with your cat if that's what you want to do. But have something that's afterwards, and let him know beforehand. Say, hey, I've only got X amount of minutes before I have to leave, just to let you know. So yeah, I'd love to have breakfast with you, but I got to leave after 45 minutes or whatever. And then when the time comes for you to leave, that's when you decide whether you want to hang out with him for longer or not. Right. And if you're like, hey, yeah, I know I was supposed to go, and it makes him feel really, really good when you do this. Right. If you end up liking him and you want to hang out with him more. And what you do is you say, hey, I know I was supposed to go to this other thing, floss my cat's teeth here in the next 5 minutes or whatever. But that was a joke if you don't know. But, and what you say is, I know I was supposed to go and do this thing with, right after here, but I've just really enjoyed hanging out with you so much. I think I'm just gonna skip it, and like what else do you want to do? Yeah, or whatever, and if you kind of like say, hey, I'm gonna skip this other thing and allow us to hang out longer. A lot of times a guy will be like, oh, okay, she likes me. This is really awesome, and I feel really good about myself. And it's kind of like a sneaky way to give a man a compliment. And at the same time, if you end up hanging out with him for 45 minutes and you suddenly realize that you don't like him very much, and you need to get out of there, it's like you already have something that you set up. You've already created a boundary. You've already framed it that you need to leave. So he's expecting that. He knows that that's going to happen. So there's that. Okay. So let's see. Wow, we got a bunch of new comments on here. So what does it mean when you're always great and asks a lot of questions, but at the end of the night gets... Oh, okay. So he even blocked me on Facebook. He gets rude and runs away. I don't know. It sounds like he's got some kind of passive aggressive thing. So Sue says, what does it mean when things are great and he asks a lot of questions, but at the end of the night he gets rude and runs away? Yeah, I mean, it depends. There's a lot of different things that could be going on there. But it sounds like if he's blocked you on Facebook and he acts really sweet and then gets crazy and runs away, it sounds like a massive red flag that you don't want to... Oh, your crush. That's what you meant to say. Your crush acts is really great. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'd find another crush. What do you have to say about this, Elena?
Yeah, I'd say it doesn't matter what it means. You know, every day I get like so many emails from women asking me to interpret what a man means. And I always say you can't like change the why. The reason why a man's doing some of these things is kind of irrelevant, and staying stuck analyzing his behavior and all that stuff won't help you. It's just what I would recommend is watch what a man does and see how it makes you feel. So that's where I would go. If it doesn't feel good, feels like something's off here, I would, back to the first mistake, don't stay stuck on a man who is acting in some of these ways.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Diana asks, she says, I have guys that say they are contractors and say they're out of the country. How do you weed out the scammers on a dating site? So, um, being a contractor is a real thing, right? It's something that I used to be a contractor, right? I used to be a military contractor, and I used to spend a lot of time in the Middle East, and it's a real thing, you know. And I did it. That was my job for a number of years, and at the same time, a lot of people are kind of using that position because it's kind of become a big position that a lot of people, a lot of ex-military people, a lot of ex kind of special forces people do, and a lot of people have been, I guess, using it to scam women out of money. And so, my suggestion is, if you're talking like what we talked about a little bit earlier, is there's this guy, he's out of the country. What I would tell him is, I'd say, hey, when you get back to the country, let's talk, right? And until you're back in the country, let's not talk, because the last thing that you want to do, because these scammers are very good at getting you emotionally connected to and involved with them, right? They use lots of different kind of manipulative techniques to get women emotionally wrapped up into them. Is just be like, hey, when you get back to the country, let me know. And if they want to continue on that conversation, just create a boundary and just be stern with it and be like, look, I'm not interested if you're not here. If you're not here, like, that's cool. Just let me know when you get back. It's not a big deal. If you're going to be back in a couple weeks, if you're going to be back in a couple months, let me know when you get back. But I don't want to have a relationship with somebody who's in some other place that I don't even know, who he is or what you're doing, or if you're even a real person or not. Um, and so, yeah, you'll want to. That's what my my suggestion is. Do you have any suggestions on
Yeah.
that, Helena?
No, that was perfect. Yeah, just don't invest. Don't invest. And don't wait for, don't, if he's not going to be back for 6 months, don't hold yourself, don't wait for him. Keep your energy open to men who are local and available and like ready to meet you in person too.
Yeah, and as far as being a contractor, what happens with contractors is they get their flights taken care of, right? If he's a contractor in another country, um, all of his travel expenses are all taken care of. So anytime a guy says that he's in whatever country and he can't get back, he's lying to you, okay? Because his company takes care of that. So anybody that says that, don't listen to him. Okay, so what do we got next here? So Lynette says, I've been dating a guy for 5 months. We go on dates in the beginning, but recently he's just texting once or twice a day, and just went on a date once this month. Should I worry? Um, so it kind of depends on what's going, who, what's going on with him, why he's only seeing you or texting you.
How often were they seeing each other before?
So
Now
she
it's
said,
down to
I've
once a
been
month.
dating a guy for 5 months. We go on dates in the beginning, but recently, it sounds like recently he's kind of been pulling back a little bit, um, and just went on one date this month, right? So
Yeah.
originally she was dating a lot more with him. Um, did you want to say anything about
Yeah,
this?
I don't want to say, yeah, you should totally worry. And, because we don't know the details of it. But in general, there's usually like a natural progression to things. A man will like escalate his efforts. So you might go from seeing him a couple times a month to maybe once a week to like every weekend and maybe on a weekday. It's like there's this natural progression to it. So if that's not happening, something is off. Either maybe he's going through something or something in the dynamic has shifted, likely. If it was really, if it was one way before and now it's different, usually it's because there's been some kind of shift.
Yeah, absolutely. So, um, yeah, and just wanted to mention again, if you want to talk to Helena about your specific situation, you're interested in possibly doing some coaching with her, we have a link in the description below where you can kind of fill out an application and talk to Helena about your situation and find out if you're a good fit for her Soulmate Attraction System program. So if you think that might be right for you, there's a link in the description below, and you can go ahead and hit that. So let's do the next one here. We've got so Margaret says, I have met 2 guys online, and both of them wanted money. As soon as I said no, they stopped talking to me. Yeah, exactly. Don't ever give people money, just in general. Don't ever give people money if you care about money and you don't want to lose it. Don't give people money at all. If a guy is asking you for money and you don't know him, I mean, that's just massive red flag. Even if you're emotionally involved in especially if you're emotionally involved from him from a website and you've never met him in person, that's huge red flag. Okay, so Penny says, how much longer should I hang out with him if I like him? Thank you for all the amazing tips. Did you? So this is the same person that was saying that she wanted to go to breakfast with this guy that's coming into town.
How much longer should I?
What
was the question? What was the question?
Well, remember the original question was about breakfast, and so she's asking how much longer should I hang out with him if I like him. Thank you for all the amazing tips. It kind of depends on what you're looking for with him, right? And it depends on how available he is. He lives in another city. It's like, okay, well, how often is he going to be visiting? How emotionally involved do you want to be in a man who lives in another city? Are you willing to be in a long distance relationship, right? Long distance relationships are very, very hard, and you have to have very good communication. You have to have very good boundaries, and you have to have very good, very high level of commitment in order for it to work. And so if you're okay with just hanging out with him for the day and seeing how things go, that's it's possible that you might end up in a long distance relationship. It's also possible that he just wants something short term. It kind of depends on what he's looking for and what you're looking for and what you're willing to kind of accept and allow into your life.
Yeah, it depends on the situation. I'd really encourage you to use your intuition to inform what you do next in the moment. So rather than us telling you, oh, yeah, go to breakfast with him. If you like him, spend 1 more hour with him and that's it. So rather than going off of some external kind of stringent rule that someone else would give you, I would really just, feel into yourself and like, am I having a nice time? Did he ask me to keep hanging out? If he asked you, would that feel good or not? And use your feelings and your intuition as a guide and an indicator of what to do next. So that would feel good, say sure. If not, rather than trying to set up all these conditions and external kind of rules beforehand, I would use your intuition, your feminine energy in the moment to kind of intuit the next step. Then you're kind of like organically led to make decisions that will serve you better than anything else when you use your own intuition as your guide.
Intuition. Use the magical force within you. Your intuition. So, okay. So what else do we got here? Amanda says, what is the standard relationship timeline from the first date to being committed, meeting family, proposal, etc. in this day and age with endless options and people waiting to settle down? It's a great question. There's a lot of... did you want to talk about this one first, Helena?
Sure. Yeah, it is a really great question. What is that face right now? It's so funny. You're just like making me laugh. Every situation is different. I could give you kind of like a generalized thing, like if it's been 3 or 4 months and a man hasn't asked you to be exclusive or you haven't talked about the future, I would say that should probably happen within the first few months. There's that thing that, if a year or 2 goes by and things are kind of stalled and there's been no talk of the future in terms of like what you want for yourself, or what he wants. Are you on the same page? If 6 months to a year goes by and there's been no talk of anything like that, I would say it might be a little concerning. It just depends on the man. Like, has he expressed to you that he wants to get married and have kids one day? And how old are the two of you? If you're in your early 20s, it's not such a big deal. But as we get older, it's important to kind of know these things before investing yourself, especially investing yourself exclusively in a man. I've had clients where they get engaged, 5 months after meeting a guy. I've had a lot of clients get married a year or so after first meeting a guy. It depends on how old they are, how settled you are in other areas of your life, and things like that. It just depends on the situation.
Yeah, so let me give you kind of a snapshot into a man's world of what all this stuff is, because this is something, and I think I mentioned it earlier. It's called like the escalator, the relationship escalator, right? You're like going up and up and up and up and up and up and up to this place where you're married and happily ever after, and children, and life is wonderful, and flowers and cupcakes. Um, to a lot of women, they see these things, right? They see these different things like, okay, we're hanging out. Okay, he's bringing me to meet his friends. Okay, he's bringing me to meet his family. Okay, he's showing me his great grandmother's necklace that she gave him in her will, and he doesn't show this to anybody else. Like, what does all this mean? Like, where are we going with this relationship? What is that? And to a guy, to a woman, it's like you're like stair stepping. You're walking up this flight of stairs to this location, and to a guy, there is no location.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's nothing there. You're not going up any stairs. There's no timeline, right? There's none of that. None of that's happening at all. Doesn't matter in any way, shape, or form. I was in Washington, D.C. about 2 months ago, and I was visiting a good friend of mine. He's from the Marine Corps. He was a helicopter pilot, and he was dating this girl that he met about 2 months prior to that, and they were immediately. He was like, "Yeah, I'm meeting her family. I'm, doing all these things. She's becoming a part of my life and all that kind of stuff." And I was like, "Oh yeah, well, what's and he's one of those guys where he's like, I'm not messing around. I want to get married, and I'm gonna find a woman that I want to get married to." And she was in this kind of potential category, and when I talked to him about it, it was like, okay, well, how do you feel about that when you go and meet her parents? Like, does that change anything for you? And he's like, why would it change anything for me? Who cares?
Mm-hmm.
I go meet her parents. If my parents were in town, she could come and meet them on her first date if if they were around and she came over or whatever. It doesn't matter to me. And a guy can go through all these different things where he's showing you things and giving you all this stuff, and none of it means anything, right? None of it means that he's moving things forward with you. But here's what does mean something, and it's something that you need to watch out for. Him not doing those things, right? If a guy doesn't show you to his parents, if he doesn't introduce you to his friends, if he doesn't do all these things with you that normally you think means that he's taking you up the relationship ladder, I would be concerned. It would be a red flag, and you'd want to go deeper into what's going on there that would make him not want to do that, because it could be a lot of different things, right? Maybe his friends, he I don't know, are weird. Maybe they're a bunch of angry MGTOW misogynists. Who knows? Maybe his family's really weird and he has a weird relationship to him. Maybe. There's a lot of different things that could be going on there, and so it's not as kind of cut and dry
Mm-hmm.
as you might wish that it was, and you might feel like you're like, okay, where are the indicators that are
Yeah.
saying that this is going in the right direction? Well, those aren't the indicators, right? Those are just indicators that there's nothing majorly bad going on that you need to watch out for, right?
Yeah,
He's not
totally.
hiding you from them or something. That's the only indicator that is if he's showing you to these people, that it's not going downhill, or he's not hiding you, or he's not looking at you as kind of a casual fling type of person. Um, although
That's so true.
yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, yeah, that's why I say if he hasn't brought these things up by a certain, everyone always wants a timeline, but just like Matt was saying, in one of my books, I call it the relationship roadmap, where we women tend to think of things as like mile markers, like the first date and meeting friends and family, having sex, getting exclusive, going on a trip together. We think all of these things are leading us down this road, or I like your analogy to like an escalator. We think it's leading us down this road where the destination is a lifelong commitment. But for a man, it's just not. It just doesn't work that way unless that those things are on the table. And he's made that clear. Like, this is what I want. I'm ready, and I want it with you. Until that's on the table, it might not be going anywhere as fast as you think it is. So important to keep in mind.
Absolutely, absolutely, very important. So, again, I just want to mention, if you're interested in this soulmate attraction system that Helena has, and potentially talking to her about your situation and seeing if maybe you're in a place where you're feeling stuck and you want to kind of figure out how to get through it. You want to make a breakthrough. You want to kind of create an alignment with yourself so that dating and relationships are easier. You want to attract the right guy into your life. You want to kind of fix what's going on in your relationship so that hopefully your man steps up and does all these things that you want him to do and moves things forward with you. There's a link in the description below this video to fill out an application, contact Helena, and Helena will give you a call and see if you're a good fit for the program. But I think we're running out of time here. Was there anything else you wanted to say, Helena?
I don't think so. I think we covered everything. Just, thank you for staying till the end. We just love you guys. And if you think you might want to talk with me personally, fill out the application. I'd love to see if we'd be a good fit to work together. And yeah, just thanks for showing up. Thanks for staying till the end.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for being the best part of our community. And thank you for being here with us. It's so awesome. I love talking to you. Both of us love talking to you. And we love you being here. And we're so grateful. And we're grateful for, you being subscribed to our channel and listening to us. And, I really hope that this has been incredibly valuable for you. So thank you so much. And we will speak with you again soon.